I call upon Nobel laureate Mohammed El-Baradei to give the Nobel lecture for 2005.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highness, honorable members of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, by now my family, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by congratulating the royal family for the birth of Sverre Magnus. We all wish him a long, happy, and healthy life. The International Atomic Energy Agency and I are humbled, proud, delighted, and above all, strengthened in our resolve by this most worthy of honors. My sister-in-law works for a group that supports orphanages in Cairo. She and her colleagues take care of children left behind by circumstances beyond their control. They feed their children, they clothe them, and they teach them how to read. At the International Atomic Energy Agency, my colleagues and I keep nuclear material away from extremist groups, and we inspect nuclear facilities around the globe to make sure that peaceful nuclear activities are not used as a cloak for weapon programs. My sister-in-law and I are working for the same goal through different paths: the security of the human family. But why has this security so far eluded us? I believe because our security strategies have not caught up with the security threats we are facing today. Globalization has removed barriers to the movement of goods, ideas, and people, but it also removed barriers that used to localize and confine threats. A United Nations high-level panel recently concluded that we are facing 5 types of threats: poverty, armed conflict, organized crime, terrorism, and weapons of mass destruction. All these are threats without borders, which makes our traditional notions of national security obsolete. We cannot respond to these threats by erecting more walls, developing bigger weapons, or dispatching more troops. These threats require primarily international cooperation. They are not separate or distinct threats. If we scratch the surface, we will find them interconnected and quite closely related. We are here 1,000 people today in this august hall. Imagine for a moment that we represent the world. The 200 people on my left will be the rich of the world. They consume 80% of available resources. The 400 people on my right are those who are living on less than $2 per day. They are no less intelligent or less worthy than their fellow human beings across the aisle. They were simply born into that fate. In the real world, this imbalance in living conditions leads to inequality of opportunities and, in many cases, loss of hope. And the plight of the poor is often compounded by and results in abuses of human rights, lack of good governance, and a sense of humiliation and injustice. These are absolutely the right combination that create the most fertile grounds for organized crime, civil wars, and terrorism and extremism in all its different forms. And in regions where conflicts have been left to fester for decades, countries look for ways to offset their insecurity or project their power. And some may be tempted to acquire weapons of mass destruction, like others who have preceded them. Ladies and gentlemen, 15 years ago, the Cold War ended. At that time, we hoped for a new world order, a world order that is rooted in human solidarity, a world order that is equitable, that is effective, and that's inclusive. Today, we are nowhere near that goal. We may have torn down the walls between the East and the West, but we are yet to build bridges between the North and the South, between the rich and the poor. Consider our development aid record. Last year, we spent $1 trillion on armaments, and we spent less than 10% of that amount on official development assistance, a mere $80 billion. To the developing part of the world, where 850 million people suffer from hunger. My friend James Morris heads the World Food Programme, whose task is to feed the hungry. He recently told me, and I still vividly remember that, if I could have just 1% of the amount spent on armament, no one in this world will go to bed hungry. 1%. It is no surprise then that poverty continues to breed conflicts. Of the 13 million people who lost their life in the last 10 years as a result of armed conflict, 9 million people of the 13 million are from the sub-Saharan Africa, from where the poorest of the poor live. Consider also our approach to the sanctity and value of human life. After 9/11 in 2001, we were outraged, we were deeply grieved, and rightly so, by this heinous crime. But many of us are unaware that as a result of the civil war in the Democratic People's Republic of Congo, 3.8 million people lost their life since 1998. Are we to conclude that our priorities are distorted and our approaches uneven? Ladies and gentlemen, with this big picture in mind, we probably can better understand the changes in the landscape with regard to non-proliferation and nuclear disarmament, the area where I work day and night. There are three main features to this changing landscape. The first is a black market in nuclear material and equipment. The second is proliferation of nuclear weapons and sensitive nuclear technology that enable countries in a short span of time to develop nuclear weapons. And the third is a stagnation in nuclear disarmament. With globalization bringing us closer and closer together, if we ignore the insecurities of some, pretty soon they will be the insecurities of all. Equally, with the spread of advanced science and technology, as long as some of us continues to rely on nuclear weapons, we risk that these same very weapons will become attractive to many others. If we hope seriously to escape self-destruction, then I believe that nuclear weapons should have no place in our collective conscience and no role in our security. To that end, we must ensure absolutely that no more countries acquire nuclear weapons. that the nuclear weapon states must move toward nuclear disarmament. And we must have a security system that does not depend on nuclear deterrence. Are these goals realistic, within reach? I do believe so. But 3 steps are urgently required. First, we must keep the nuclear and radiological materials out of the hands of extremist groups. Since 2001, the IAEA, together with the international community, launched a worldwide campaign to ensure that we are protected against such menace. We protect nuclear facilities, we secure powerful radioactive sources, we train law enforcement officials, and we monitor border crossings. In 4 years, I can say we have completed 50% of the job. But the pace is not fast enough, because in this area, the possibility of nuclear terrorism, we are in a race against time. Second, we need to tighten controls of operation to produce materials that could be used directly in developing nuclear weapons. Currently, any country can master these technologies for civilian use, but in doing so, they also master the most difficult part of developing nuclear weapons, and that is to produce the highly enriched uranium or the plutonium needed for a weapon. I'm hoping to make these operations multinational, so no one country should have exclusive control over these operations. My plan is to start by providing assurance of supply through a reserve bank managed by the IAEA, so every country that have a bona fide credential can have access to the fuel, to the reactor that they need for peaceful nuclear technologies. If we do that, no country will have the incentive and, more important, the justification to have their own independent enrichment factory or reprocessing factory. If we do that, then we should be able to move toward a moratorium with regard to national facilities, and we should continue to work toward multinational approaches for the reprocessing and enrichment of nuclear material. We need also to strengthen the IAEA verification. The IAEA verification is the heart and soul of the non-proliferation regime. We must have the required authority, the needed resources, the adequate information, the up-to-date technology, and we must be backed by the Security Council in case of a country that is to be found in non-compliance with its non-proliferation obligations. Third, we need to accelerate the disarmament efforts. Today, 8 or 9 countries continue to possess nuclear weapons. Today, we have 27,000 warheads still in existence. To me, this is 27,000 warheads too many. A good start would be for the nuclear weapon states to reduce reliance, the strategic reliance on nuclear weapons. More than 15 years after the end of the Cold War, it is absolutely baffling to many that the major nuclear weapon states continue to maintain their nuclear arsenal at a hair trigger alert. So in case of a reported possible nuclear missile, the leaders of these countries will only have 30 minutes to decide whether to retaliate by a nuclear attack, and with that risk the destruction of entire civilizations. These are 3 steps that we can readily take. Protect the nuclear material and control the verification system. Control the production of weapon-usable nuclear material, and accelerate the disarmament efforts. But that's not enough, in my view. The hard part is how to create the environment in which all of us would look at nuclear weapons the way we look to slavery, genocide, a taboo and historical anomaly. Ladies and gentlemen, whether we believe in evolution, intelligent design, divine creation, one thing is certain. Since the recorded history, we have been at war with each other, under the pretext of religion, ideology, ethnicity, and other reasons. And no civilization has ever willingly given up its most powerful weapons. We seem to agree that we can share modern technology, but we do not acknowledge that our values, at their very essence, are shared values. I'm an Egyptian, Muslim, educated in Cairo and New York. I live now in Vienna. My wife and I have spent half our life in the north, half in the south. And we experienced firsthand the unique nature of this human family and the common values we all share. I think Shakespeare expressed best this unique nature of every single member of the human family in The Merchant of Venice, when he asks, "If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge?" And lest we forget, there is no religion that is founded on intolerance, and no religion that does not value the sanctity of human life. Judaism values the beauty and joy of human existence. Christianity asks us to treat our neighbors the way we would like to be treated. Islam declares that killing one soul unjustly is the equivalent of the killing of the entire humanity. Hinduism recognizes the entire universe as one family. Buddhism cherishes the oneness of all creation. Some will say this is idealistic to believe in a society that is based on tolerance and the sanctity of human life, where borders, nationalities, ideologies are of marginal importance. To those I say, this is not idealism. This is in fact realism. Because history has taught us that wars rarely resolve our differences. Force does not heal old wounds. It opens new ones. Ladies and gentlemen, I talked about our effort to combat the misuse of nuclear energy. Let me for a moment say how this same very energy helps humankind in many different ways. At the IAEA, we work daily on every continent to put nuclear energy at the service of humankind. In Vietnam, farmers are planting new rice quality strands with more nutritional values with the assistance of the IAEA. In Latin America, nuclear techniques are used to map underground water to make sure that we have a sustainable water resources available to us. In Ghana, when I recently visited, new radiotherapy machine provided by the IAEA is helping thousands and thousands of people to be treated from cancer. In the South Pacific, Japanese scientists are hard at work using radioisotope techniques to understand the climate change phenomena that's threatening our environment. In India, 8 new power reactors are under construction to provide clean electricity to this growing nation, a case in point for the growing expectation of a surge in the use of nuclear energy worldwide. These and other 1,000 projects exemplify the IAEA ideals, atoms for peace. With nuclear expansion, though, it is crucial that we make sure that nuclear energy is used at the highest level of safety and security. Since Chernobyl in 1986, we have been hard at work all over the globe to make sure that nuclear safety is maintained at the highest level. And since 9/11, we have been working with even greater intensity to make sure that nuclear security is everywhere. In both fronts, we built interrelated network of legal norms, performance standards, but maybe our best tangible results are on the ground, where hundreds and hundreds of missions with international experts are being dispatched every part of the world to make sure that nuclear facilities, nuclear materials are safe and secure. I'm very proud of the 2,300 hardworking men and women who work for the IAEA. These are the IAEA staff, my colleagues with whom I share this honor. Some are with me here today. We come from 90 countries. We bring different perspectives to our work, but our diversity is our strength. We have a very limited authority, a modest budget, and no armies. But armed with the strength of our conviction, we will continue to speak truth to power, and will continue to carry our mandate with independence and objectivity. The Nobel Peace Prize is a powerful message for the IAEA and myself. The message is endure, continue your work for peace, security, and development. Durable peace is not a single achievement. It's an environment, it's a process, and above all, it's a commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, the picture I painted today may sound somewhat grim. Let me conclude by saying why I have hope. I have hope because globalization is enabling nations and people to be politically, economically, and socially interdependent, and making war more and more unacceptable as a way to resolve our differences. If I look to the 25 members of the European Union, the prospect of them using force to settle their differences is almost absurd. The same is emerging with regard to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, with 55 member nations from Europe, Central Asia, and North America. I ask myself, could these models be expanded to be a world model through the same creative multilateral cooperation, where the strong are just and the weak secure? I have hope because civil society is now better informed and more engaged. They are pressing their government for change, to create democratic societies based on diversity, tolerance, and equality. They are proposing solutions, raising awareness, donating funds, transforming the civic spirit from the local to the global. In short, trying to bring the human family together. We have now, I believe, an opportunity more than any time in the past to give an affirmative answer to one of the oldest questions of our time. Am I my brother's keeper? What is required is a mindset, a new mindset, a change of heart. So at the end of the day, we can look across the ocean and see the person there as our neighbor. Finally, I have hope because what I see in my children and many of their generation. I took my first trip abroad at the age of 19. My children were much more fortunate than I. They took their first trip abroad as infants, and they grew up in a multicultural environment. And I tell you absolutely that they are totally oblivious to color, race, or nationality. To them, their friends, Noriko, Mafupu, Justin, Hussam, or Saulo are simply fellow human beings and good friends. Globalization through travel, media, communication can help us to achieve what my son and daughter and their generation have achieved. See each other simply as human beings. Your Majesties, Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, imagine what would happen if the nation of the world spent as much on development as on the machines of war. Imagine what would happen if every human being would be able to live in freedom and dignity. Imagine a world when we shed the same tears when a child dies in Darfur or in Vancouver. Imagine a world when we settle our differences through dialogue and diplomacy and not through bombs and bullets. Imagine that the only nuclear weapons remaining are the relics in our museums. Imagine the legacy we could leave to our children. Imagine that such a world is actually within our grasp. Thank you very much. Tusen tack.
Mohammed El-Baradei ending his speech there with a thank you in Norwegian, tusen tack. An incredibly enlightening and powerful speech, I'm sure you will all agree.